Hello and welcome to another modelling video. This is Alan from the Makona Man at YouTube with another information, lecture, discussion video on an aspect of the hobby that I've picked up on the traps in my travels and whatnot. Today I would like to talk about commission modelling. We'll start with buying models, and then if you're to be a commission artist yourself, a quick rundown. I do not have experience commission making models. I do have buying on behalf of other people and helping them find commission modelers. I've seen them build their work, and I have done trade professional commission work in my fields of study and profession. So I know what it is to make a living off something that's skill based. I choose not to do it in modelling. I'll explain about that at the end of the video where it's my choice. And we'll continue in just some information if you wish to start making models and selling them to people, or if you wish to buy models made by someone or get someone to build a model for your tastes and requirements. So what are you buying when you are purchasing a built model kit, or asking someone to build a model kit to your specification? It is either a piece of art or a crafted item by an artisan. So it's more than just a tangible value of the materials that cost, such as the kit and consumables. The breakdown of purchasing something is the model kit itself, acquiring the model kit and supplies, hours in construction and finish, maintenance of equipment within the studio to produce said model, consumables such as paint, glues, whatnot. Even if a very small amount is used, the overall amount of product does need to be compensated. And most importantly, the skills and experience of the modeler. The modeler may have been building and painting for 5, 10, 20 years. They've made a lot of mistakes. They've made a lot of failed models. They've gone on a long journey, such as yourself and myself. If you happen to be a modeler or not, most likely you are. So you are paying for every mistake, every wasted model, every spilt paint, all of that. And the most harshest and controversial point of commission modelling, the price, the money, the stuff that we don't want to talk about because we'd rather be talking about the construction and efforts and inputs. Price is quite controversial. It's tangible. It gets people in trouble, rises all sorts of discussions, and have people slamming and flaming each other online or online or in person. Price is negotiable, but it can easily lead to offence or breakdown in communication. Normally, if you're approaching a very experienced commission artist, they will have a set price. It's non-negotiable. They have a minimum amount that they set for them to break even and lead into profits. A less experienced one may be shaken down and cheapened, but doing so may do a disservice and hinder their future ability to make future models for you and other people. So when you are inquiring about the price, it's best to ask about the rates. Be very wary if they struggle to price together a kit. If they're very quick and go in a quote, it's this sort of model, this is my experience, this is how much time, this is the ballpark price, $200 to $400 or $250, whatever. They've done it before, they know what they're doing, they're going to be within budget, they're going to be within their time frame for your modelling. If they have not priced before, or they've only made models for friends and whatnot, they may go too cheap, they may go too expensive. Too cheap is definitely a problem. If someone quotes you under and they don't meet the deadline, the model may never get finished, abandoned, damaged, something may happen. You're passing over a model kit or money, and that can quite easily lose. If you do go to an inexperienced commission artist, even though you're saving money, in the end, the risk could be greater. If you're willing to take the risk, that's a different story. We will be getting into reputation shortly. Approaching with a price is normally the wrong way around it. Have a budget, and when in negotiation you say this is how much you rather spend, they talk about how much they rather receive. Negotiate. If you're unable to meet their requirements or they're not able to meet your requirements, it's not necessarily the way to go. This is not when you turn around and say blah is a rip-off artist and slam them. It's just the negotiation is not compatible. It's not your fault. It's not the commissioner's fault. Finding someone who does commission modelling can be quite a challenge. Very popular commission artists have a certain amount of projects. They spend a lot of time to create a very high standard, and they may only build a certain amount of projects a year, 5, 10, whatever. There is a chance that they have a backlog of projects. They also need holidays, rest, time for their own projects. If they get burnt out, there's a risk of you losing your project. So you can add yourself to a backlog of a very famous commission modeler, or you may just keep an eye out and someone might say, I'm free, I'm open for commissions, or you approach someone who has a commission reputation, may not have done one for a while, or only approaches certain clients or close friends. Normally they're advertised in spaces where commission modelers gather, Facebook groups, hobby forums, competitions. But normally the best way to approach a commission modeler, if you know someone that's commissioned the model from them, or if it's a friend of a friend. If there is a network of friends and many modelers are friends and you approach them, that's perfect, because there is a good chance a lot of big commission modelers will not advertise due to large volume of work, or they get bothered by people who try to negotiate price and insult them by offering as little money as possible for the maximum of work in return. And then there is vendors' terms. When you're in negotiation, you will have requirements of your own of what sort of model, how you want it built, painted and whatnot. But you have to consider the person that you approach has a style. There's models they enjoy, there's models that they don't. There are models that they're experienced in building and in styles that they're very good at. You want to find someone that's style and building quality and finished models match what you want. If you approach a car modeler and you want to have a dirty tank from World War II or a rusted Gundam, the finish is not going to be great, or they're outright going to refuse you. So even though you may have found a car commission modeler who's got free time and the military modeler might be busy, approaching someone who has incompatible skills, abilities or interests is the wrong way around it. Finding someone to commission to build a model for you can be an art and trick in itself. It's almost like looking for a very rare model kit to purchase, or a toy or a collector's item. It's a journey in itself to find someone to commission, as well as it is to build the model itself. Sometimes it will fall in your lap, sometimes you may hunt for years, and that's okay because you'll be putting pretty big money into it. So whatever terms there are, respect it. And again, if there's no compatibility, it is okay to walk away on good terms, because you never know. Commission modelers do network with others and they may recommend your work to someone else. It does not hurt to ask. Now, pre-made stock in the West, it's quite uncommon to build a model, put it out in the market and try to sell it at a set price, because you may dig it, you may not, and generally if it sits around as dead stock, the price does go down on it. If you're lucky and you really appreciate it, you may be able to snag it. Opposed in Asia, when a new model kit or subject does come out, such as a Gundam or a military vehicle, a modeler may pick it up, build it and paint it immediately, and release it in the marketplace to be bought. This is quite common in hobby stores in Japan, Hong Kong, those sort of locations in the shop front. Half the time it's the staff, when they have downtime, they snap and do a very basic paint job, use it as a store display, and when that time runs out they sell it for probably double of the recommended retail price of the box stock. the staff member is already paid for their shift at that workplace, and the modelling is a part of how they're getting paid. So that's an excellent way of scoring a very cheap model. But because there is so many commission modelers selling work by commission or in second-hand display cases and toy shops, they sometimes try to beat each other in the ground on price. So they generally work at a very cheap rate, but the work is at a very, very basic, yet very, very clean, out-of-the-box style. If you're happy with a snap kit with a clear coat, or a painted kit, a panel line job and a clear coat, you can pick up something like that, be it a car, tank, but it's mostly figures or Gundam kits. If you want something more specialised, the pre-built Asian market is not really the place, especially if there is a language gap. All you can really do is buy something off the shelf as if you are buying a toy. If that works for you, absolutely amazing. If it doesn't, it doesn't. It does not really work out online, but if you do visit the country, you can find something in places like Akihabara or Denden Town, Osaka, in a shop. And generally, the prices of said kits are double or a little more double the recommended retail price of the original model, and if they're of a higher quality, they rarely surpass the $100 to $200 mark. Now, when you find or you're looking for a commission modeler, they normally go by their real name or an online handle. It's quite easy to look up their reputation or research unless you're already aware or a fan of their work. Many modelers display their work in all sorts of places, formats, blogs, YouTube channels, but they may also enter competitions and interact in other formats. So when looking at a reputation of a commission modeler, especially if you're new and they may be a risk, Googling their handle, looking at their social media and their public places, you could see what the quality of their models are, or at least the quality of the models they want to show. You do have to be careful because there have been a few scams where someone makes up a name and they show amazing world-class work, but it belongs to someone else. There's a famous resin modeler called Matt Mosaic. For some reason, he's the rear of all jokes, where a few of his large resin pieces has been used to advertise a kit for sale, a hobby service or a commission. If you've seen that model go around and it's not linked to that individual, or they're only known for that one outlet where they're selling a service on eBay or an online marketplace, but they don't have a Twitter, a YouTube, a Facebook, a dozen other things where you can see personalised comments and pictures and likes and whatnot spanning many years, yet they've got a piece of work that looks like it's been built by a world champion who's been in the hobby for 10 plus years. That is definitely something to avoid, especially if it does seem cheap. A piece like that would go in the many hundreds of dollars, and if they're only asking $50, $100, $200, it definitely smells too good to be true. Also, if you're aware that someone is doing the wrong thing, it is best to report them, or at least approach a group and say, is this legit or not? Because someone will know someone, it will go back to the original artist. It is wrong to steal people's work. So in the end, reputation is as easy as a Google search away and just having a look into the modeler. It'll take a few hours. It'll be quite fun and interesting seeing what sort of work they produce. If they've got a long history of commission work, they will post also photos of commission pieces that they've created that they don't no longer own. Then you can start correspondence with them. If you're buying a already established piece of work, it's best to do it in person. Not so much online, unless they do have a very good reputation, you know, packaging, transport and damage, but not to be scammed, and then it's set at a reasonable price. The same research does apply. Also, just as an interesting story, in Eastern Europe, modelling is quite big, particularly in Russia, and people go to competitions, and apparently sometimes at competitions it's an ideal to look at models that are built at a very high standard approach the modeler and which to purchase. There are millionaires and very wealthy people purchasing high quality award-winning models as assets like a painting or a piece of art opposed to something to enjoy, lock away and allow the value to rise. If you do approach someone non-solicited at a display or a competition and ask them to buy their model, you better be prepared to pay big money. When you're entering a competition, you put in a lot more time and it's outside the realm of what you're charging per hour. So instead of trying to build something in 7, 10, 20 hours, they may invest 50, 100, a few hundred hours. So you bet that they do not want to pass or part with their model simply for a few $100s. Unless you're prepared to part with several hundreds of dollars to over the $1,000 mark, you will be seen as ridiculing or insulting them. This is not a common method in other parts of the world to purchase models, and if you're not serious about it, you can definitely get out burnt. But it is a method of buying models, and there is times where someone puts a model on the table and there's a business card with a phone number or their approach and saying, I will buy that for $2,000, $5,000, $10,000, just ridiculous amounts, so the modeler doesn't even have a chance to say no, even though it's their dream kit and they built it in a dream way out of their imagination. They've got an emotional attachment to that model, but everyone in the end does have a price tag if they are a commission modeler or not. But that does take a bit of experience and negotiation. Now, post-sale, you bought a model, you look after it, you display it, you don't allow dust to cake on, or at least you know how to clean it properly, and later on you lose interest, you wish to sell it. You do have to consider at the price you bought, the subject or the model may fall in and out of favour. Once you buy it to enjoy it, not to invest, such as the example of the Russian modelers. When you do sell it, you sell it assuming that it's lost value because you have to find someone with similar taste in the same model to move on, unless you happen to bought it from someone very famous or it's an award-winning model from a Gunpla Builders World Cup or a Gold Demon or an IPMS event. So guaranteed it's to lose 20 to 30% of its value. If you market it right, you can get more money, but when you buy models, you don't buy it as an investment that goes up in price like rare toys or gold. It's more likely to depreciate in value. So when you're buying it thinking you're going to enjoy it, you're going to keep it, you're going to love it, it's within your taste, fetish, whatever. It's not something that you just get on a whim, you get rid of on a whim, unless you buy the right model. This is a different realm of toy collecting or custom toy collecting. This is more outside of my expertise, but there are people that can do it well and can probably give you advice, though it is a very, very risky market even for the absolute experts. Once you purchase a model, there's also things that you can do that respects the modeler or honours the modeler, or disrespects them and can see you as a irresponsible commission model owner. When you buy a piece of work, you're the owner of the physical work, but you're not the owner of the IP or the intellectual property. That piece of work is forever owned by that modeler. When you post it in a magazine, a forum, other places, take pictures and share it, you have to reference the modeler. This is blah model built by this gentleman during this year. So if you get invited to post it for a magazine, put it on social media, enter it in the competition, you're doing it under the name of the modeler who built it, not your own. If you wish to enter model competitions or display a model as your own, this needs to be negotiated if the modeler is willing to do it or not. Like ghost writing for a writer, it's ghost modeling, and expect to pay a lot more for that if you're entering a competition. I'm not too sure why people would do this to pass a model off as their own, but it does happen, and if you're known to buy work off someone and then claim it as your own because you paid for it but didn't build it, there is chance that your reputation as a commission customer will be muddied, and other commission modelers will never build for you or up the price once you approach them. It's the same if you're buying a model and telling artists that I won't pay you in money, I'll pay you in exposure, and I'm going to put it on social media websites as the icon of an event or something. Commission modelers are not really looking for exposure, popularity to get their name out. They can quite easily do it once they've built a few good models and they network with other modelers. If anything, they may not want exposure because they don't want to be approached by idiots who can buy a kit very, very cheaply and just say, lower the price, you're being a rip-off. So just saying exposure will not happen unless you are the owner of a gigantic blog, website, company or something. If their model's going to be the face of Bandai or the face of Tamir magazine or something. If you're just the owner of a blog or a YouTube channel with a few hundred, few thousand, 10,000, that's definitely a slap in the face, even though you think you've got a following. So that's definitely something not to approach. But when you're buying a model and you're owning a piece of someone's work, there is a very important thing that you should always keep in your mind. A modeler is very passionate about their work and put passion and just a little bit of themselves, their personality, or what some people consider their soul in a piece of work, only has the ability to build certain amounts of models in their busy working time, family, work, other hobbies, whatnot. So they may only produce 5 to 20 models a year, and they may only be a modeler for a certain amount of years within a lifetime. When either hardship kicks in, a family kicks in, they have to enter and exit the hobby for whatever array of reasons. Some models they'll keep for themselves, some models they're doing it for a commission, and this is the lifelong experience of a modeler. When they're sharing a commission model with you, they're sharing their hobby, they're sharing their passions, they're sharing what they love with another person to own and experience. And this can be a very rewarding experience for a commission modeler. So there are some things you just have to take that it could be a lot more sensible approach opposed going to a toy shop and buying a toy off the shelf to do whatever you please with. So there are some things to consider when you're considering the feeling of the artist, and most importantly, when you're negotiating, you have all terms set up, including a strategy to back out if the commission goes wrong. If they're unable to finish the model in a time frame, or if something happens, there's a break off, you leave with nothing, they leave with nothing. Do they get a deposit and the rest of the money is paid upon completion? Is there a refund or compensation if the models are damaged, destroyed, never finished? You have to make sure that the terms that you agree with, they agree with, everyone's happy. But just in the off chance that something goes wrong, an exit strategy, because you don't know what could happen in their life, that they have to suddenly stop modeling, and that you can get some sort of compensation out, even though you're still losing at the end a model or some money. So make sure you are very, very careful in that aspect. Now, you've been a modeler for a little while, and you want to sell work, or you want to make models for other people and sell it, and either do it for the reasons of monetizing, a living, a hobby, building something for friends or family, multiple reasons. You do have to have a understanding. The question is, why are you doing it? And the reasons why you're doing it is the disciplines that you set in to achieve your goal. If you're doing it for a loved one, a friend, a family member, money may change hands, but you put maximum effort, you build it as you usually build a model. If you're building it for money, you want to make a profit, you want to make a business, you want to do it part-time, fundraise more money for more tools in your hobby, whatever, when you're building a commission model, there is definitely a different mindset and experience to approach if you wish to do it in a way that gets done quick, easy, simple. You still get a little fun out of it, and you get money without you losing money. The chances of you losing money than earning money is a lot greater, and there is a chance for your first few commissions you will lose money until you get the hang of it and you can start profiting. You also should set some goals. How many commissions will you allow yourself? What sort of commissions when you're negotiating, and most importantly, how you negotiate a commission. If you keep piling commissions on top of yourself, you're going to be doing nothing but building models for other people, and maybe models that you don't even like, or brands or styles of models you even like. You need to have a standard. You need to have the ability to say no and refuse. There's never anything wrong with refusing work, even if you're short on money, you're desperate, you're hungry, and you're offered stuff that you're just going to lose money off, or you're just not going to enjoy it, or you don't quite have the skill to hit it off. So we've got some of those in mind. Now again, the most disturbing thing to talk about, or the hardest, rate, price. You're going to have hordes of people approach you and say, build this model for me, I'm a fan of it as a kid, whatever reasons they throw at you. They want the lowest price possible. And if you're starting out, you have no reputation, they may not research you. They want to know, why are you charging as much as other professionals who have a large reputation? And this will go into negotiations. If you are caught once working a commission for a random person and you charge a very, very cheap rate just to get your name out, or you just throw out a dollar value without considering our product, consumables, whatnot, you get a reputation of being a cheap commission modeler. The day you turn around and ask for more money, no one will want to go to you, because you've just set a standard for yourself for life. So for the first price you put out, that's generally what you're going to get for the rest of your commission career, allowing that you can inflate or deflate about 10, 20, 30%. So if you offer to build someone a very complex 30-hour job model for about $100, $150, and if you're working at something like 50 cents a rate, in future when you ask for more money, the chances are that's going to get you in trouble. So sometimes it's wait to see, once you get at the skill level that you're happy with to do commission work, a few commission projects for friends and family that will not leak the fact that you're a 50-cent hobby whore or something, and then you can hit out to some random people. So what I would like to think of a rate is, people either charge tradesmen, electricians, plumbers, by the hour or by the day. You need to have a fixed rate of what you charge. And don't be too concerned if you think it's too much, because you're going to input a work ethic as a businessman to make sure that you're doing the right thing by your client. If you wish to do it as a casual thing and build one or two commission models for close friends and just potter away at your own rate that you do a model, that's fine. This talk is for people who want to do it professionally and make a lot of money off their hobby, which is nothing wrong with it. You just need to be of a different mindset. So what most common people charge is anywhere between $10 to $20 an hour. Sometimes a bit more, sometimes a bit less, depending on your experience, competitions won, reputation, whatnot, as well as what you feel you're worth. You may also consider what your skill levels are, what level of schooling, what you get paid in your current job. If you're someone that is a very high income earner in your existing job, you want to get something quite similar while you're modeling, that's fair enough, because it's your time. You could be at your workplace or you could be slaving away at a model. Either way, you should be getting an income. So that's most important. Secondly, you record every hour you work on the kit. So you have a diary, started at 9, finished at 12, started at 3, finished at 4, used a quarter of a jar of paint, bit of cement, and then just work out just a general ballpark fee of consumables. Generally a kit will not consume any more than a whole jar of paint, even though you're using different paints and thinners. So just a whole painting cost should probably put about $4 or $5 if you're buying $5 or $4 jars of paint. If it's a much larger model, you may double that. And then you throw in a few dollars on top of that for, you know, blades that you blunt, and needles from your airbrush, a little bit of cement used, whatnot. So you've got your hour rate, then you put the fee of about, it could be up to $10 for consumable use. If you do need to go shopping specially to buy paints, tools or something for that model, and there's a chance that you'll never use it again, that needs to be added to the bill. as well as hours that it took you to be at the hobby shop. So if you have to go to the hobby shop and back and it just happens to be in your passing and you're doing your own shopping, add half an hour to the time that it takes to build the model for them. And finally, if they're asking you to provide the model and not them, and if it's a rare model and it takes hunting around, shipping, all that, not only you charge them for the price of that model, a lot of people lose out when they're hunting models on behalf of other people, or even if it's a long hunt and they abandon it and you're stuck with a model on your lap, you make sure that a part of the deposit is the cost of hunting that model, and then you put in more price on hunting that model. If you're hunting a rare model, pre-order, whatever, if you're spending 2 hours online looking at eBay or auction houses or whatnot, that time should be charged as if you're remodeling, because you could dump a heap of hours looking for a model and losing out. And I've had a few discussions with friends who are commission modelers. They get very upset when they look for a model. Could take them a while and then they lose interest in the commission, or that they've already lost up to hours hunting said model. Even a fairly simple model, it could be out of stock, you have to wait, you have to go to a few hobby shops or online shops and wait. All of this needs to be encountered, as well as the building and construction. Discipline when you're building a model, you definitely record the start and the end, including planning, imagining, test fitting, everything. So you have a diary, you record what consumables you're using, if you buy, and cost of other consumables, and hours. Once the model's done and you tallied everything up, you've got a rough idea. So an activity when you're developing discipline, you should not attempt a commission without experimenting with anything. Pick up a model that you're going to build for yourself, pretend it's a commission for a client, write down the price, the time to hunt the model, every hour you work on it with your hourly rate, the consumables, whatnot. When the model's done, you tally it up, you look at the price, do that 2-3 times with future builds, and getting a grasp of what sort of models you can build in what sort of time frame, and roughly what you can charge. You can see if you're charging too much or too little compared to other commission people on the market. Do a little research what other people are charging. Talk to people who bought commission models and see what they're paid for, what they're negotiated. Nothing wrong with copying what they're doing. And hell, if you can understudy someone who does commission work and get advice from them, that's the best way to do it. But then you've got everything else that I'm explaining to also consider. So you need to have a discipline, you need to make records of hours of what you're putting into it, and when you're focusing for that 1 or 2 hours that you're modeling, it's a full into the project, opposed to just having some TV playing in the background, having a scratch, having a stretch, walking to get a drink and spending 15 minutes to make yourself a sandwich or something. That also needs to be taken into account, that the client is not being charged when you're goofing off or not actively working. So then you can suddenly see if you've been at the bench for 5 hours and you've been goofing off for 2 hours or playing with something or checking your Facebook or something, that it hasn't been a project that's taken 30 hours. In truth, it probably has only been 7 hours in solid effort that you're charging the client. If you're doing research on the model, some of that should definitely being thrown in. So that's discipline. Reputation. If you've been around for a while, you've got a blog, you do competitions, you've got awards to your name, that's fine. If you haven't really put yourself out in the public sphere, you definitely at least need one outlet of social media with your name or your real name, that you only deal for modeling, nothing personal, nothing that you do to knock around with friends or work colleagues, and just display models that you've built, a little bit of information. If you do competitions, talk about every time you placed in a competition, you've entered in a competition, other models that you've been up against, and especially if you've won any awards. This definitely puts you above other commission modelers, or at least when you're negotiating over price, you can prove that you're just not some sort of cheap Sally on the side. You're someone who's worthy of respect and worthy of the money that they're investing, that they're paying for your experience and time, and not necessarily just general, mindless, unskilled labour. Advertisements. When you're advertising, don't do it open. Don't go in the public place where just general models hang out and go, I'm open for commissions. You will attract idiots and fuckwits. They're going to come out of nowhere and they're going to say, oh, I don't have time, build this model for me, I'll give you $20, and if you paint it, I'll give you another $20. And they're thinking $20 will give you a couple of dollars in your pocket and pay for a paint or two. Not knowing that they're just outright disrespecting you as someone who's trying to scratch money out of it. You definitely want to let other modelers who are friends of yours that know people into commission modeling. You may enter a commission modeling community, being careful that it may be quite elitist and your work may be slandered and picked on in a public place. But you want to try to keep it low-key, or just keep it among your fan base, your friends, and your close circle community. That's probably the safest way to do that, and just inch outside little by little until you're more comfortable, rather than just jumping in the spotlight and being picked on, bullied, or people attacking your work, which can affect your reputation and can affect what you're charging. Now, most importantly is style. You have a style of building models. You have a gallery of people to look at. When you're negotiating, there are two types of people that will approach you. People that want out of the box, clean out of the box, almost looks like the box cover. Practice building a few models like that. Out of the box is a safe way of marketing yourself to a larger audience of people that wants a finished model, as well as pushing out your style, but not to superfine detail. Someone might say, I like the way you build models, I'm preparing to pay X money for you to get up to X level to finish a kit for me. And you know that you got free range, you build it however you like it because it's your style. They may go, I want an out-of-the-box model of this car, tank, Gundam, whatever. Then you have to consider what the instructions say, how you put it together, how you colour it. Choice of paint as well as method of painting is very important. Ask the client for any suggestions if they will pick the paint out for you. That way that there's never any discrepancy. Ask lots of questions, what they want. The more information you have that you're willing to build the model or you finish the model, the more happy the client will be. So they'll either give you full reign, do whatever you want, client's own fault if they don't like it, or you follow what they want. Most likely it's out of the box. Avoid modifying, avoid scratch building. That racks up hours, that racks up money. Unless they're going to say, I've got an unlimited budget, they'll be quite unhappy. Out of the box, very simple paint schemes, panel line and top coat, maybe some decals is definitely the safest way to go. But it just all goes down to what they want, what you want, and again, negotiation. If you can do it, you agree, you're happy, you think you'll enjoy the process, or if you think it's too troublesome, too much, they want some scratch building, they want some decals, they want some custom things built, and you definitely let them go. Now, a full-time commission modeler. From a beginner, you'll be far off. You definitely have your own job to make money. You have a few hours aside. You organise it, plan, and whatnot. You'll do a few commissions for a few years before you jump into full-time. There are full-time modelers. They are very, very rare. They're very hard to find. They're normally especially skilled and charge a very, very high price. You'll find them in figure painting and wargaming armies because they're very simple to assemble. The models are easy to find and most of the effort is put into painting. Styrene assembly kits, resin, all the sorts of other things are harder to find, but they definitely do exist. They just take a lot of research and efforts to find. Full-time modelers, even though they do a lot of travel, they may teach classes, they win competitions and do a lot of personal stuff, they may not necessarily have a glorious lifestyle. They are being paid according to what they get paid per project on the hope that they profit from each project and that profit, they also have to engineer what they're charging, pays for their dwelling, their travel, their food, their bills, everything. Being absolute full-time is very, very hard. You need to have a constant flow of work. It's best to do it as a part-time casual thing and have a full-time job, or someone that's unemployed and they live off social benefits. Not recommending that you quit your job and just live off the dole payment or government handouts and just model freely for fun. That is not a lifestyle. Unless you just happen to be someone who can't work for some reason, and that's a different story. You're doing something with your life. Never think that I'm bashing on the disabled or anything. It's very hard living. There are times you'll probably fall into heartache, depression, or poverty, and there are times you probably might need to lean on social security. But it's something that people very, very rarely land into, and they build so many models and for other people, and they just pick up any commission for whatever reason. It can burn them out. Modelling becomes a job, 9-to-5 thing that they slave away at, and they just decide, I don't want to do this anymore, it's not fun. They enter something else due to the limited work and whatnot. Unless you just happen to be wired in the right way, or that you have other business ventures which I'll talk into, and you tie it in to your commission work and work generally in the toy and hobby community, it can work out. But just building models 100% of the time as a full-time profession, bad idea, doesn't exist, does not quite work out well. In Japan, other places, there are a lot of people that just paint batches and batches and batches of models, and they put it in shops and displays and whatever. I don't know how their lifestyles work. I'm not in connection with anyone like that. It works, but I imagine from, selling kits at more than double retail price to $100. Though on the other hand, living in Japan is quite cheap with food and whatnot. It happens. I don't know how it happens, but it also looks similar that you're probably living below the poverty line. Not exactly a glorious lifestyle. Though if you had skills in sculpting, garage kit manufacturing, or at least a small hobby shop where you're selling kits, paints, whatnot online, and you supplement your income that way, or working in a hobby shop or something where time can be put aside to building your commissions or whatnot, that works because you're in and out, you're doing a little building, you're doing a little something else. The glorious thing about kit manufacturing, sculpting figures, tanks, whatever, casting them in resin and selling them, you're a business. You're selling a product, you're marketing a product, and then on the side, you're painting and building other things for commission. You can jump in and out depending on what's harder, what's easier, but it's definitely easier to move a product, and if you've got a large volume of product to move or skill, or that you're sculpting for a studio and they mass produce it and make it for you, that just makes it a lot easier, and that you've got something different to do every day depending on your projects, a sculpted project, a commission project, something completely different. If you're lucky, one of those very few people that got a YouTube channel or a blog or something, and that you're sponsored and it's very popular and you get ad revenue through that, and it supplements you as well as commission modeling, it's two birds with one stone. That's a way to survive. Though the number of people on social media that makes a lot of money through AdSense just via modeling or kit reviews is very, very small, and you're more likely to just unbox and do out of the box or snap builds and display them. You may not necessarily be a skilled modeler, but you're a very skilled social media content creator. And you may be targeting, instead of being a competition skilled modeler, you're reviewing products as if you're a toy reviewer. You unbox it, you assemble it, you play, you look at it, you do a few small touches, you move on. Very, very valid. Absolutely okay. And if you enjoy it and it works, fantastic. It's still a commission, because remember that if you're a professional or a commission modeler, does not mean that you're a skilled modeler. That means you're able to work out a formula that you can make it work and make money off it. There could be people that spend many hundreds of thousands of hours on a kit and they get nowhere with it or someone that can punch out kits in 10-20 hours and just sell it on a production line. Now, I was mentioning in Discipline, have a go at building a kit and painting it, making records, trying to keep it under a $200 or $300 limit, or trying to build a model in 10 or 14 hours or something like that, depending if you're building small tanks or figures or large Gundams or whatnot. Practice a few times, pretend the project that you're doing is a commission, hack at it, see if you're capable of doing it or not. Do a little bit of research, try, make a model for a friend, and seeing if you're able to part with a kit as well. Definitely do all of that before you throw yourself in, get a bad reputation, and just stuff it up for yourself. I don't really have a lot of time. I enjoy doing the YouTube thing. I build a few models. I don't want to do commission work, but in the future, it may be something I wish to explore. This is the research I've done that I can put on the shelf and think about it later, and if I do definitely want to hit it at a time where my experience is quite high, and that I can at least command whatever terms, arrangements, as well as price that I want, opposed to being a beginner and someone's never attempted it, making a mistake with a price and losing money, or just having a bad taste in my mouth or a bad experience from it. If you want the easiest way, you don't care what model you're building, you don't care what style of modeling, what you have to learn. If you just want the easiest way out to make money as a commission modeler, easiest way to do it is wargaming miniatures. People enjoy wargaming, role-playing, desktop stuff, and they like the rules and the game aspect, but not the modeling aspect. They may want a beautifully painted, a beautifully looking army to field. Game rules change constantly, people buying new armies, selling old armies. Over many years the models become obsolete and you can't game with them anymore, even though they've got some value as a collectible, beautiful looking item. There is always people looking for people to paint either a few miniatures that are the gem of their wargaming army, or a whole wargaming army, and there's just constant demand. So if you don't mind painting about 100 miniatures that look the same at a high quality standard, you speed paint, you see how many you can get, like a batch of 10 or a batch of 100 or a single miniature, and repeat it and finish a whole batch and whatnot to make it look good, and a few pieces to look excellent, a few tanks. They're very quick to just hammer out assembling wise, and painting isn't too hard if you're hand painting or airbrushing. Obviously airbrushing is a lot quicker. You colour in, you do a few shades, you hand paint a few pickup points, top coat it. Top coating is important because if a wargaming army you're handling it with your hands, paint may wear off. That's again primer. It's an extra cost, but the models won't be damaged because it'll be handled a lot, paint lifting. That is just the easiest way to do it. You'll find a steady amount of work, and if you produce and pump out a few good armies, people take photos, put it over social media, you get a reputation, which you'll do it like that. You'll have a constant, steady stream of work, and there are so many people that have made a living off it, or even businesses off it. It's absolutely not funny. It can be fun, but it can easily get boring. There's a few people that I talked about, including a workshop I've gone to, and they just hate Space Marines. The amount of many hundreds to possible thousands of Space Marines they've done is just insane, but they're just so easy and fun to paint anyway. So there's a few things to think about if you're going to be doing commission modeling. A few things to try, the discipline, the negotiation, and thank you very much for watching. That's just a few things that I've talked to friends, I've talked at events, I've talked to new modelers, I've read up online. It's just things that passed my hands over the many years I've been in the hobby, and I thought it would just be a fun model hobby or topic to talk about to you guys, if anybody just wishes to have this knowledge or not, and just any experience that I've definitely come across. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, until next time, if you've enjoyed this rambly, long experience video, I can make another one quite similar. If you got some topics, I can just brainstorm and put something together. We'll see how we go. Have a lovely one, and catch you guys next time. Stay tuned for more content, tutorials, reviews, whatever, as well as 3D printing content. And my Facebook page does have some interesting stuff that doesn't quite either appear on the YouTube channel or not for many months to come, including opportunities to meet me. Have a good one.